Hi, class. So this video is going to cover the CLC assignment that you should be working on this week. And so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here's our portal. So you can get to it, of course, through your path. I'm just going to click on next week and the assignment on its due date. All right, so we've gone through this, we've read through this in class, and there's been a little bit of confusion, maybe, about how to tackle this. I'm going to open up the attachment here. Right. So now we've got all of these. There's a lot of arrows on here that can make it a little confusing. You can get rid of the arrows by clicking on them and hitting delete as you begin to build your own matrix. But you'll notice each column has a letter. They're A through G. That makes 7 columns. If you look at the numbers that show the 7 items that your analysis needs to include, each one of these numbers should correspond to the letters or the columns in here. So sectors of the external environment and the 5 forces of competition. So here we have the external force or the external environment. So you'll want to cover each of these areas. Someone on your team should be assigned a different area. Some of you only have 4 people, so some people will have to take more than one area. So the way I would divide the work is I would say, okay, person A on the team is going to take the economic environmental force. Person B might take demographic. Maybe third person will take 2 of these, and then on down. Just make sure you cover all of these areas under column A. So if you take economic, then the person who's in charge of economic is going to want to look at whichever of these concepts under economic apply to the organization that you've chosen to analyze. And then just keep going down. And as you go from left to right, your analysis gets a little more targeted, a little more exact. So you'll take economic, you'll look at the concepts under economic, you'll look at the trends that you're finding in the economic sector. You'll evaluate what impact they're going to have on the corporation. You're going to look at the impact for the business unit. And why does the company care? And of course, as I've said several times, you need references. So you need several references wherever you're finding your information. Opinion is fine. You see that some of these, like this one, is opinion. Opinion is good, but make sure your opinion is based on data that you received and point back to that data. So if you're doing the demographic, you're going to want to look at the issues under demographic, and then the trends in demographics, the impacts on the demographics for the corporation, the impacts for the demographics on the business unit, and why does the company care, and what your references are. So the difference between impact for corporation is the big view of how it impacts the entire company, the entire organization. The impact for business unit will be if it impacts a certain business unit. So let's say you have a business unit that manufactures chairs and another business unit that manufactures tables. Well, does it impact one business unit Or does it impact one business unit more than the others? And how does it impact that business unit? Okay, so that's how I would plan it. Assign each person the environmental force, and then each person works through the columns left to right. If you use the spreadsheet to organize all this, then please include the spreadsheet as an attachment. But the spreadsheet itself does not substitute for the written assignment. So each person is going to have to write this out, write their section out, whichever segment or segments, whichever environmental force or environmental forces that they're looking at is going to have to write it out. Make sure you cover all the areas, concepts to research in each category, the macro trends, impact of the trends, which you see in column C, the impact of the trends and issues identified in section D and on your business unit. You need conclusions about how and why these assessments are relevant to your overall company. And it says that the conclusions may be your own personal suppositions, or they may be provided by an external sources. Each one is fine, just make sure it's supported by data. If your opinion comes from an external source, then that external source is the source of the data. Hopefully they've supported their argument. Make sure you list your references as a final page. There's no word limit on this, but keep in mind that when each one of you is going to have a separate paper and it all has to be combined into a single paper. So I would use the rubric as kind of a guide for the format of the paper. And on your Word document, you might use these areas as headings. And put all the, if you take all of the environmental forces, you're going to list each one of those: economic, demographic, physical, sustainable, under the relevancy to the company. And each one will be listed separately, but the heading would be the relevancy to the company. You would list the concepts to research. You don't have to follow the rubric as headings for each one of these areas, but you could kind of use it as a guide. Or another idea would be to come up with your own headings based on these 7 items. Just make sure that everyone on your team is using the same headings so that it is easier to compile them into a single paper. You can also have the paper as a shareable document in Google Docs or whatever resource you want to use. You can also do it in some of the cloud servers and just share the file so everybody can edit it. And as you're working on it, you can build that paper as you go. Just have one person who's in charge of looking through the document, editing it, and making sure everything flows well. On the Word document, I would recommend for each heading, we're using several headings here, and then we're including the information below it. But for your headings, go ahead and use the heading in your types up here. And when you view it, you can click on view and then navigation pane. Each heading becomes something that you can quickly navigate to. One other tip that I will suggest is if you have Grammarly. If you don't have Grammarly, I would suggest getting it. There's a free version you can get. And run all your writing through Grammarly. You can have Grammarly running as you write. checking my document right now. Here we go. And you'll notice that Grammarly says, hey, that should be capitalized. And then it says, hey, you spelled that wrong. And you can click as you go or afterwards, but I would strongly recommend using Grammarly to help the process go a little more smoothly. All right, that's it. I think that's a good explanation about how to handle this assignment. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. For the Wednesday class, I'm encouraging you strongly to be in the Zoom class on Friday. I'll have 2 breakout rooms that you can go into. And there'll be team 1 and team 2. I'll label them with the team captain's name, make it easier to know which team you're on. And you'll be able to go into that breakout room and work on this project and negotiate anything that you need to negotiate as a team as far as who's going to do what, how you're going to do it, if you're going to use a shared doc, where you're going to store the shared doc, all that. So good luck. This seems like an overwhelming assignment, but because the work is divided, it should be a little easier. And I'm looking forward to seeing what all of you come up with. All right, have a great week. Friday class, I will see you tomorrow.